Hey everyone, welcome to the show, episode 32, the Tasmanian Stadium. There's been some big news. The Tasmanian Stadium has been approved and put through the Legislative Council of Tasmania. So it's passed the process, and it's been a big thing for the state, the big thing for the AFL. We now have a 19th team. It's going to start off by talking about the creation of it, and we're going to start with that. So Macquarie Point Stadium, it's a multi-purpose stadium that is going to be in a domed shaped stadium. Macquarie Point is in Hobart, the capital city of Tasmania. It's going to be a waterfront land between Hobart's historic port precinct and the city's primary northern route. So, yeah, it's an important piece of land there. It's in the capital city to start with, and it's going to make the city and also the state a booming place to be. So, yeah, the stadium forms a part of agreement between the Tasmanian government and also the AFL Football League, the AFL, to establish a Tasmanian-based AFL team. Construction is scheduled to commence in 2025 or just after that, as it's been passed. So we're passing the approval part as we speak. With the venue to be projected to be open in 2029 as the home ground of the Tasmanian Football Club, and also the men's and women's team in the AFL for the Tasmanian Football Club, and the Hobart Hurricanes, which is the cricket side in the Big Bash. So the capacity is going to be 23,000. The field shape's obviously an oval. It's obviously going to be a domed roof, translucent roof, which is see-through, obviously. And we're going to talk about the original proposal that started off this whole process. So that was the original process was for the new AFL stadium was announced by then Premier Peter Gutwein during his March 2022 State of the State address, positioning it as a key requirement in securing a Tasmanian-based AFL team. So yeah, it sort of proposed the stadium by the Premier of the time, and it was proposed to be constructed at Macquarie Point as emerged from negotiations between the AFL and the Tasmanian government in 2022. The AFL agreed to work with the state on the model for the team, with the expectation it would include a development of the new stadium. So the Tasmanian government commissioned a site and also a selection and a study on the process. And there was primary sites considered were Regatta Point and Macquarie Point, with Macquarie Point being confirmed as the preferred location. So basically the AFL CEO, Gillan McLachlan, formally announced the team's admission into the AFL at North Hobart Oval on May 3rd of 2023. With the men's team joining the AFL from its 2028 season, and a timeline for the AFL women's team is yet to be established, but it will follow along suit not long after that. So yeah, on the same day, the Tasmanian government signed a club funding and development agreement with the AFL, containing a financial pathway and establishing a Tasmanian-based AFL and AFLW club, as well as requirements around the construction of the new purpose-built stadium at Macquarie Point. As mentioned, seating of 23,000 and expandable full to 30,000 seat stadium to adapt different types of events, which include concerts, corporate events, as I'll mention in a minute. So yeah, including both a circular and a rectangle configuration, so it can adapt to those types of things. As I mentioned, a fixed translucent roof, an AFL standard media and also change room facilities, which obviously is important, what you need to host events and sporting events. Now we'll talk about the financial findings and costing. And this is what was being put forward. $15 million from the AFL towards the construction of the stadium. $460 million from the Tasmanian government. $240 million from the federal government. And also ongoing funding of $12 million annually over 12 years by the Tasmanian government. The further agreement outlines the Tasmanian government is solely responsible for any costs and overruns associated with the stadium and construction, as that's just how it works with those types of things. Also, penalties for failure to meet the 2 to 3 staged completion dates of $4.5 million to be paid through the AFL. So yeah, also retains the right to terminate the Tasmanian license or waiver the stadium if the requirements aren't met, also of the stadium being built. But obviously this has been processed through. I think that doesn't quite matter because it's just a process of working. Obviously it needs to be online and in time frame, but I think they're reasonably realistic with that time frame and result. In 2024, July, they released a concept for the designs of the 23,000 seat stadium. Obviously in Macquarie Point. And also the design includes a 1,500 person conference facility. And it has universal accessibility and also provides step-by-step access through the venue. And the project team comprises of Cox, Attribute, and in partnership with local practice Columbus studio and engineering firms AECOM. So yeah, they're just obviously the construction partners of the process. Construction is expected to commence in late 2025 as we just got the approval, with the schedule of the stadium to be opened ahead of the 2029 season. So yeah, we can quickly talk about, it's obviously going to cost $1.1 billion. It's a fair chunk of money, and that's the obvious one. But let's think about also the revenue that the stadium will make over its lifetime. And let's talk about facts and figures here. The stadium will bring in a lot of revenue. It's forecasted between $1.7 billion to $2.2 billion over the 10 to 20 year mark. So it could be more earlier on, or they're roughly estimating that it will be between that and within those years. So essentially doubling what it costs to make. So that's quite important, because I know it's been one of those things in Tasmania. It's been a hard button topic. And I understand people are upset that we need to have stuff built, whether it's from housing or, the hospitals, and also fix the roads. But this is a long-term investment within the state, and the projected figures are about between the 1.7 to billion. And that's not the whole lifetime of the stadium either. So that's just an estimation over the next decade to decade and a half. And that's important to understand. It's obviously going to bring in a lot of money and revenue through ticket and gate prices. Also having concerts, the tax they bring in on the concert tickets. Food and beverages, we also know that the tax from the alcohols will be obviously paramount to be adding that in. And also the Tasmanian governments have the rights to the profit and the revenue from the beverages and also advertising as well. So advertising obviously is quite a big one. That's going to bring in a fair bit of money. We're also talking about conferences where businesses and corporate partners can have a big place there. We're talking about events like the cricket, also the Cricket World Cup probably eventually. Also potentially play sports like the Rugby World Cup. You got the Ashes on at the moment. Tasmania will eventually have an Ashes spot. So I would like to just quickly talk about something that's important too, and I'd like to compare it to the smallest state, essentially on the mainland, and that's the state of South Australia. And the reason why I mention this, it's a good comparison. A lot of people say, well, we can't compare it to a big state on the mainland. Well, we can quite compare it to the smallest state, which is South Australia. Outside the territory of obviously Canberra, South Australia is the smallest state, and it's a great state. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about a comparison of costs and an analysis of that. So Adelaide Oval had renovations in 2014. A bit over 10 years ago. Yeah, it didn't have the controversy that this oval has had in Tasmania. But, there was some naysayers at the time. But they'll be very quiet now because I can talk about the facts and figures because we are 10 years down the track. And we can compare. We got some numbers. We have had this analysed quite well. And it's been a terrific thing for the state of South Australia. And the reason I mention this is because we got the numbers. And the numbers quote that Adelaide Oval, since the renovations, have roughly brought in between $97 million to $100 million a year. So you times that over 10 years, it's obviously over $1 billion. And the cost for the renovations was $535 million. So $535 million. And I think it was an extra $110 million for the bridge, so it rounded off at just over $640 million. But think about how much money it's brought in since then. And I would mention just 1 year alone in 2015, Adelaide Oval also hosted the World Cup in the cricket and made some big money. Adelaide Oval brought in $300 million that actual financial year, including $90 million just from the Cricket World Cup. So just that year alone, with the renovations and the ability to bring events into Adelaide, has made a great investment for the country. That has made the ability for a great amount of revenue to be brought into the state. And it's important to mention that because it's so easy to compare that. It's compare the pair, okay? It's the smallest state on the mainland. It's obviously bigger than Tasmania, but it's not much bigger, okay? The idea is fundamentally the same. It's going to cost money, obviously, to make the stadium, but look how much it's bringing in. Obviously, over $100 million a year, essentially, each year at Adelaide Oval. It can be more, or it can drop to $97 million on an average year. But also on big years like 2015, it could bring in $300 million. So it's a lot of money. And obviously, I compared that with the Tasmanian Football Club and their stadium that's getting built now. And it's, $2.2 billion is quite easy to bring in, and also brings in the ejection of tourism and etc. So I really wanted to mention that because it's easy to compare that, and that's the facts and figures. It's very easy to look at. I'm not gonna not the person that gives like misinformation on something. I wanted to research the closest type venue on the smallest state in the mainland, and it's very easy to compare that and the impact of the economic benefits that Tasmania will also receive. There's no doubt about that. They're definitely going to make more than what the state costs. It has helped South Australia bring the state together. We all go to the football here. There's going to be no difference. It gives a great sense of pride for the state. And I believe for Tasmania, it will be the same. It's the easiest thing I can compare it to. You don't have any experts say that. I'm coming in with good knowledge and understanding here and presenting a great number and figure that is the most closest and comparable for Tasmania. So, yeah, we'll just quickly say, obviously, it's going to cost 1.1, but it's going to bring in over 2.2 billion. So it's quite exactly the same numbers as Adelaide Oval. Over about 100 million a year. We're going to round it off about there because that's the easiest number to deal with. 100 million a year. It's been over 10 years. Obviously, it's been 11 years. So that's over, 1.1 billion. Essentially bringing in over double from what it cost. So, yeah, over, and then you could add in that 300 million. So you'd say that's, it's a fair bit of money. And that's just been on average. Some years are going to be more, some years are going to be less. That's just how those things work. So yeah, that's just to clarify that. So the roof design for the Macquarie Point Stadium is going to be a translucent and fully enclosed dome. It's primary cladding material, and it's supported by a hybrid structural system of steel and Tasmanian source laminated timber. So it's intended to showcase the local materials and sustainable construction practices. So yeah, obviously Tasmania has great timber. It's one of the Australia's timber parts of the country. And obviously we would like to promote sustainable timber. There's no point pulling down forests when we have a great timber industry, and I think that's important. So the roof is the most expensive component of the stadium development. So yeah, it's cost initially budgeted at $190 million. It was later revised to $207 million. So they've just, it's going to cost a little bit more. But, that's just generally how those things work. So, and I think that's okay. At least they've sort of budgeted to be a little bit more. Obviously, with inflation, things like that are going to happen. But it's not a big blowout. Obviously, it's only a bit extra. That's just how it's going to cost. And also shows the local materials that are put into the stadium, which is just as important. That creates GDP for the state. That brings in economic, also the ability for jobs to create those working materials, and also helps bring in money from those businesses that support those materials. I think that's just as important as the actual things. They're the little things that people miss and they don't talk about. So that's why we're here. That's why we do this podcast, because we talk about those little things and the facts and figures. And we're here to have positivity towards it and make a great view on this podcast. The structure is transparent, also intended to be a softened stadium visual impact on the Hobart's waterfront, particularly in relevation to nearby Hobart Cenotaph and the Queen's Domain. In particular terms, the enclosed roof is designed to allow the stadium in host events in all weather conditions. If completed, the stadium will be the largest timber roof sporting venue in the world. So it's going to be the largest timber roofed sporting venue in the world if once completed. So that alone is pretty cool. That's another one no one really knows about, and it's a great fun fact we got here on the podcast. It's going to be the only sporting venue in the world that has a timber roof supporting its rich history of timber in Tasmania. The roof height is designed to be peaked at 54 meters, which is 177 foot, and to have a taper of 22 meters, 72 feet, with the final internal clearances of 50 meters, 160 feet to accommodate international cricket. So we'll just talk about that a bit. The stadium exterior, the facade design incorporates a woven patterns inspired by the Palawa, the Tasmanian Indigenous cultural and traditions, referencing the region's Indigenous heritage, and it draws on the site's maritime and industrial history through materials and the forms of how the country has been formed together. So that a bit of everything in the exterior there, which is cool. Pays homage to the Indigenous people, and also through the maritime and the industrial history of Tasmania. So quite cool. Another fun fact there, and understanding of what the stadium will look like and designed, and the artwork that will go into it. So the sporting events, the proposed Macquarie Point Stadium obviously is the Tasmanian Football Club. The AFL men's, also women's, expected to play 7 home matches per season at the venue, which is probably going to be more, with 4 additional matches added to be hosted in York Park and Launceston. The financial model assumes that the average attendees will be about 20,850, so almost a sellout each time. They already have a rough average of how many people want to be there, and that's going to be on average, which is almost a sellout each time. Obviously, the women's football is going to have approximately about 4,900. They're thinking, so that's a crowd for that. The venue is also intended to accommodate cricket during the summer season. The cricket fixtures proposed in the financial model include 1 annual test, which we played over 4 days. Like we currently got the Ashes test at the moment. 1 men's and 1 women's ODI, 1 day international, which that's what that means, and also a 2020 match. 4 Big Bash matches, so that's the cricket Big Bash League, the 2020 Big Bash. And the venue is under consideration as a future home ground for the Hobart Hurricanes, which that means they'll host more cricket matches there in the 2020s of the Big Bash. And a summer venue for the Tasmanian Tigers in the domestic cricket of the Sheffield Shield, which is obviously, and also the national one-day competition, so the test and the one-dayers. Early concept plans included a movable lower-tier seating to accommodate the rectangular fields of events such as rugby and soccer, aiming to improve sightlines and spectator experiences. So but they're going to obviously look at adding all that type of stuff in. So obviously rugby, soccer events included matches of the National Rugby League, the NRL, so they're eventually going to play some games there. the Women's Premierships and also State of Origin, the Super Rugby Pacific, as well as potential fixtures like the Wallabies and the Wallaroos, and discussions have included possibly hosting A-League men's and women's events, as well as international soccer games as the Socceroos and the Matildas, so the men's and the women's soccer international matches. So that's pretty cool. They're the events that they're going to have. There's no doubt about that. That's just sport alone. Look at how many of them I just rattled off right there. And building a big stadium like this provides a place to play all these events. I haven't even got to concerts. I haven't even got to the big concerts you could have at this stadium. That's just a start. So when you think about it, those things I just mentioned there are going to bring in an amazing amount of revenue. I personally would love to go to Tasmania to watch a game of football. It's also for people with all incomes. It's a good reason. Some people aren't obviously all rich. The people that don't have as much money can save up. They can go there just for a weekend and watch a game of football. Fly back on the Sunday night or Sunday. Go there. You could go to a Friday night game or a Saturday night game. Spend the weekend there and just fly back home. And if people fly over for football and they enjoyed it during the winter, also gives them an avenue to maybe go watch some sport in the summer or a concert there and go enjoy the summer life in Tasmania. So that's a win-win. There's no doubt about that. This is gonna get people to come to Tasmania. Tourism will be booming. I know for a fact that I'd like to go watch a game there, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of people even with more money and more wealthy that they're happy to go spend the money in the state of Tasmania. So there's no doubt about that. Yeah, concerts and live music. There's plans to concept a capacity of 31,500 and including a tiered seating on the field arena and a dedicated stage pocket, an outside broadcast area of the northern stand, and planning the application of the venue could hold a full stadium concepts. Essentially, yeah. So yeah, they could easily draw 15,000 attendees to support tours and acts from like Iron Maiden and stuff like that. So obviously the concerts that are around currently and going to be in the future. So yeah, it could be, it could go between 31,000 to obviously 15,000. Yeah, it's noted that it'll be difficult to attract major international artists to the festival due to Hobart's lack of suitable facilities. He stressed that infrastructure like this and the light rail to Hobart's northern suburbs should also accompany the stadium to support large-scale events. So this provides jobs through the rail network. It's going to provide jobs for low-income people where they have to serve the beverages, take the tickets at the gate, hand out the records to the crowd. It's going to provide so much jobs. The stadium includes a 1,500-seat function and conference room on the western stand, offering views from both the playing field and externally towards Mount Wellington. So a nice, beautiful view. It's going to be a beautiful looking stadium by the sound of it. It's going to have a nice wooden look with a nice lot of views. So yeah, Business Events Tasmania CEO Maureen Craig highlighted the Hobart's current largest conference venue accommodates 1,100 delegates. The new stadium would be bigger than that and would be able to have the capacity of 1,500, enabling the city to attract larger national and international conferences, and a bid for additional of 110 conferences per year. So look at that, 110 conferences per year. That alone is going to bring in thousands of dollars. It's going to bring in more wealthy people from overseas. They're going to be happy to spend money within the state. And they're going to be welcomed with a nice facility. So yeah, the stadium's proximity to Hobart's waterfront is further enhances appeals for the events and the organisers. The economic assessment and projects will mean that the venue will host 40 major conferences, 260 smaller functions, contributing to the estimated 2.2 million in annual profits. So that's just like a ticket to get in. So that's not even including the other stuff with that. So yeah, that's going to have a direct impact on the broader economic activity and community benefit. And also, yeah, it's a lot of money that we're talking about, and it's going to contribute, a lot of money to the state, and it's also going to bring hopes and dreams to the young Tasmanian people who play football. I think that's the most important thing. We have a lot of proud Tasmanians playing within the AFL, and this gives them hope. This gives them hope that one day they could be drafted. One day they could put the Guernsey on of their state and they could represent their state with pride and hold their heads high. And that is probably more important than any money can do. Provides this state the ability to move forward and into the future. It is 2025. It is a proud moment that they've got this team. It should be celebrated. I think that, to me, is the most important. So, yeah, it's gonna bring in at least between, obviously, if not double, but at least over, close to 70% in extra revenue than what the costs were. So yeah, between that and any lower than that. So we're just going to go through my notes. We're going to talk about the Northern Access Road, initially attributed to the stadium, has already been proposed under the 2019 Hobart City deal, which is separately funded. Additional bus services are not expected to be required. Existing services will be operated event day, consistent with the practices at other events in Western in the stadium. And the proposed Collins Street footbridge, included in some of the cost estimates, remain unfunded, but is currently the part of the stadium scope. So they're going to bring that in, obviously. As I mentioned, that's what Adelaide Oval had a footbridge made, so might only be a little bit extra, as I mentioned. But look how much money that brought in. These little things that probably will get added in as we go, but that's going to be needed. It is amazing to walk across the Adelaide Oval on the bridge. So essentially Adelaide Oval, I'm just going to mention this quickly, and I'm assuming it'll be quite similar to what that's going to happen at Tasmania. So yeah, you everyone can catch a train into the city, all different parts of Adelaide. The city is central to Adelaide. So if you're from down the south, down the north, or they all meet in the middle essentially. And the eastern suburbs generally get buses in because that's there's no train line. There used to be one years ago, but not anymore. But so that still works quite well. They're just straight, not far from the city. They're the closest to the city, so that's how that works. But yeah, it's a central point. Everyone comes to Adelaide Oval. It's in the middle. The trains disperse and they leave afterwards. Are full of people. It's quite busy. But when we come into the city, it's a lovely walk. You hop out the train, you go through either Sky City or the outside, and you walk through onto the bridge. And it's an amazing walk. You're walking across the Torrens River. And when you come around, if you come here to gather around and experience you can do the tour across the River Torrens. And I almost won the car of that. I hit the actual target right in the middle. This is on gather around. So yeah, you get 2 kicks. I got it with my second kick and won myself a football, but I would have liked the car. but very close. But these are little things that I'm going to say that Tasmania will eventually do. They could do a thing like that. I don't know where the footbridge will be, obviously, over there. I haven't been to Tasmania before. But yeah, it sounds like they're going to build a footbridge that you can cross into. You have a railway network that's going to connect everything up. So you're going to get people come into the city. It's going to make Hobart the buzz of the state. It's the capital city. It deserves a football stadium. It deserves to pay homage to the state and represent the state well and give hope to all the young kids and a dream that they could one day either play AFL or play cricket in their state on a great oval within a stadium, and also host many events, conferences, and etc. I'm just thinking what else I can add into that. I think I covered it quite well. I think, it brings great pride to the state. I'd just like to thank the AFL for doing this. I wanted to do this podcast today to just show the facts and numbers and the figures, talk about how their stadium was created, the roof, economic benefits, but mostly importantly, it brings the state into the AFL competition. They're no longer the state that's been ignored now. They're now, are part of the country, and it's important that they have a team. I know it's going to be 19 teams. I think eventually we'll probably get a team in the capital city of the whole country, Canberra, and make it a 20-team competition, because every team needs a team in the capital city. Every sporting code in the world has that. That's the one team that's missing. They get good crowds there when GWS go down there. Eventually that's probably going to happen, but that's a podcast for another day. I just wanted to mention this today. I did a fair bit of research and tried to find the best figures that I could calculate and put them together. And there is plenty of talent that's outside of the AFL in the lower leagues, as in the VFL, the SANFL, and the Waffle. As I mentioned in my previous podcast, rookies who didn't get drafted, there's plenty of talent. There's so many South Australian players that didn't get picked up. Port just recently got Blake Hoodsign Biner. I probably butchered his name there. It's a hard name to say. He's a great talent. He was in South Australian's undefeated midfield. Didn't get drafted. Didn't even get a sniff. And now he's been given a chance at Port Adelaide. I'm using him as an example because there's probably 5 or 6 other players in the SANFL under 18 South Australian team that was undefeated that didn't get drafted. You could almost say that all those players should have got drafted. So my message to Tasmania: give these guys a chance to come over and play in the VFL side. Obviously, they're going to have a side that's sort of warming up in between now and when the stadium's built and then open for the first season. Draft some of these guys or bringing them in and develop them. You can have, even if you give 2 of these guys a chance, you're going to develop them. They're going to be older. They're going to be, that nice, matured age. They're going to be a bit bigger bodied. They're going to come in and, they're going to be an adult, and they're going to be fully sized. You could develop these guys into being good players. Not only that, there's still some good Victorian players that didn't get picked up. There's a few players. There's a whole list that I mentioned in the rookies who didn't get drafted. You could grab a handful of SA guys, a handful of Victorian guys. You can even get a Waffle player on the Western Australian state team. You can get them, develop them. I know they've got some good players that they've brought in on the VFL that recently either been delisted or just in the lower leagues. I know they've got recruiters that are doing that. They have development coaches that are currently doing that. But that's my message to the Tasmania Football Club. Please give some of the SA boys and Victorian lads a chance who didn't get drafted. There's a lot of people that say, there's not enough talent. There is plenty of talent. These guys are good. they deserve. There's plenty of talent that deserve to be on an AFL list, and hopes and dreams. Not only that, the Tasmanian people as well. There's Tasmanian players that they can develop and talent as well. I have no doubt about that. There's going to be plenty that are in the AFL that they're going to snag. But most importantly, there are players from all states at the moment who could come in and you could develop them to be ready and ready to go. So that's my take on that. But it gives great state pride to Tasmania, and it's a great thing. And as I do this podcast, as I mentioned before, it's about positivity and also highlighting that this is a great thing for the state. I'd just like to say thank you. Thank you to everyone. I think I covered this well. Have a great night. Thank you.